What's going on, YouTube? We are back with our Week 6 Power Rankings. If you follow the channel, you'll notice that I am all the way on the bottom right corner and a little tiny head. Well, I did this because I kind of wanted to make everything bigger so that it's less about me in that little pylon circle and more about what we're talking about. But anyway, I just want to put that in front because someone's going to say, why are you all tiny in the corner? But anyway, I just want to preface, like I do every week, when I do my power rankings, I try not to overreact. That's the biggest thing because I think most power rankings, week to week, no matter who puts them out, are overreactions. They're reacting to who beat who and not factoring in a lot of what goes into the game, like matchups or how difficult the opponent is and what goes on during that game. So for me, if you follow the channel, you know that I try to keep my power rankings as I guess as realistic as possible. My goal is to try not to have these teams move throughout the weeks like drastically. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. Coming in at rank 32, previously 32, we have the New York Jets. Previously 29. I have the Jets down at 32 because I think that they still just don't do anything right. And that game against the Titans that they won that moved them up the power rankings was probably best case scenario for them, and they were playing a very banged up Titans team. They were missing A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, and we're missing Caleb Farley and their other corners. Plus, the Jets' offensive line had played the best game they've played all season, and their defensive line had played the best they've played all season, and Zach Wilson had played the best he had all season. So I think that Titans game was best case scenario against a very bad defense for the Jets. So I think the Jets realistically will always be within the 29 to 32 range because the bottom of the barrel teams are very, very similar in skill level and how they play each week. But let's go to the next team. Next team I have on this list is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville Jaguars have been at 31 pretty much all season long. I think in the first week they were a little bit higher, but since then they've slowly and steadily stayed at 31. They're 0-5, but despite all the Urban Meyer issues off the field, he has coached a better game every single week. They almost upset the Bengals at Cincinnati 2 weeks ago on Thursday Night Football, and it was a very close game. It came down to a game-winning field goal and a very impressive 2-minute drill from Joe Burrow, but the Jaguars have found ways to score points in every game. They have not been shut out by anybody, and they consistently put up points. And this is why I probably will never put them at 32. And I'm starting to anticipate them to start winning games. I'm not saying they're going to make a run or anything like that, but I think they will upset the Dolphins this week. That's something I really, really do think about because I think if Tua comes in, he's not adding an extra element to that offense. He's not really bringing a spark. Plus, I don't know if this is common knowledge, and I haven't really heard anybody talk about it, but the Jaguars are the sixth best team in the NFL right now at running the ball. They have the sixth most rushing yards per game in the league, and we're seeing Trevor Lawrence start to use his legs more, and we're seeing Urban Meyer kind of figure out what being an NFL coach is on the field. His off-the-field antics or whatever, we don't care about that. But he is starting to piece it together on the field. So for that reason, I would expect the Jaguars to stay at 31 being the lowest. I think the Jaguars have the potential to get better each week. But let's talk about the team that I have ranked 30th, previously 32nd, and that is the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans move up even though they lost to the Patriots because if you had watched that game, they were dominating the Patriots for pretty much all 4 quarters of that game. But Mac Jones led a pretty impressive fourth-quarter comeback and took the win over the Texans. But Davis Mills looked really good, and not saying that Davis Mills is the franchise quarterback or will even keep starting after Tyrod Taylor comes back, but I think that this Texans team is just slightly slept on. I mean, they're not a terrible team. A lot of people had them pegged to go 0-17. Do I think they'll win more than 4 games? No, but Tyrod Taylor had them very competitive all season long, or for the 2 games he was playing until he got hurt. But for that reason, I'm moving the Texans up to 30 because I think that they could probably edge out the Jaguars and they probably could edge out the Jets, and they continue to be competitive in most games. Coming in at rank 29, previously rank 30, I have the Atlanta Falcons. So the Atlanta Falcons move up because they continue to find ways to beat bad teams. They beat the Giants a few weeks ago, and they beat the Jets this past week in London at a neutral field, in a neutral field zone. So it was an impressive win, but the reason why it was an impressive win is because the Jets had momentum coming off of a big win against the Titans, and the Falcons were banged up. They were missing Calvin Ridley due to a personal matter. They were missing Russell Gage, who hasn't really played all season. And all they had was Kyle Pitts, Olamide, Zaccheaus, Cordero Patterson, Mike Davis. And Matt Ryan has not really taken many shots down the field. If you're a fantasy owner and you own Calvin Ridley, he's been a letdown this year compared to his production last year. But in the game we saw against the Jets, Matt Ryan started to take more shots down the field. He started to move the ball beyond making passes over 10 yards, over 15 yards. And we saw Kyle Pitts come alive. So if this Falcons team can keep getting momentum and keep their foot on the gas, maybe they can make some noise in the AFC South. Maybe. I still have no idea what to make of the Saints yet, but I think the Falcons are definitely the worst team in that division and probably will finish fourth. But let's talk about a team ranked 28th. That is the Detroit Lions. So the Detroit Lions are ranked 28th. The last week they were 28th. They remain at 28 because they have been competitive in literally every single game that they have played. And in all of NFL history, they're the only team to lose 2 games on 50-plus yard field goals with 0 seconds left on the clock. So you got to give credit to the Lions for fighting in every game and being competitive in every game to lose by a field goal with literally no time left on the clock. Games that they were winning. They have competed with the Ravens. They've competed with the Packers. They've competed with the Vikings. They are competitive in every game, and they will end up upsetting someone eventually. And this team, actually, despite their 0-5 record, is showing a lot of promise for their future. They still need a quarterback. Jared Goff is not the answer, but they do have pieces to build around. Jamal Williams is not a bad running back. DeAndre Swift is a great running back. Amon-Ra St. Brown is coming alive. They have their left tackle in Penei Sewell. And when hopefully he comes back at full strength, Jeff Okudah, they could potentially have a lockdown corner who was having a pretty decent year before he tore his Achilles. He's in his 3rd year. So, the Lions are such an easy team to root for. Nobody hates the Lions, but they are in every game, and they are competitive in every game. And a little bit of advice, I would be very wary betting against the Lions because they have almost covered the spread in every single game except for 2, I think. So I'd be careful betting against the Lions. I think they're going to upset someone. It might be this week against the Bengals. I know if my coach took a podium after a loss and was crying with how proud of he was of me, I'd probably run through a wall and die for that man. So expect some noise from the Lions. I don't know if it'll come this week against the Bengals because the Bengals are turning out to be a very good football team. But let's talk about a team that comes in at number 27. We have Washington Football staying at 27. I think Washington Football Team is one of the biggest frauds in the NFL, and if you have followed this channel for quite some time, you know that I do not believe in Washington Football Team. Their defense is overrated, the most overrated unit in football, and I think it's kind of starting to become common knowledge that they are overrated and they do not deserve the clout they've been given. And I also think that Taylor Heinicke is the biggest fraud in football, or not fraud, the most overrated quarterback in football. I correctly predicted the past 2 out of the past 3 weeks that I've given a prediction on Taylor Heinicke. I said he would get exposed against the Buffalo Bills, which he did, and I said he would throw 2 picks against the Saints, which he did. And these are documented in last week's Pylon Camp podcast, which comes out every Thursday. I correctly predicted that Taylor Heinicke would throw 2 picks and lose by 10 points to the New Orleans Saints because Taylor Heinicke is a one-read quarterback. If Terry McLaurin's not open, he's throwing it to Logan Thomas or now Sammy Jones-Reyes or whatever his name is. And if the tight end's not open, he's throwing it to Terry McLaurin. And if Terry McLaurin's not open and the tight end's not open, he's still throwing it to someone who's covered. So his mistakes are going to catch up with him. They have started to catch up with him. So I think Washington Football Team is the worst team in the NFC East. I know their record says otherwise because the Giants are below them, but they are not a good football team, and they are going to get exposed for the rest of the season by good football teams or even decent football teams. But coming in at ranked 26, previously ranked 24, I have the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins, to me, are a huge letdown this year because I thought that their defense would continue to remain decent or not decent, but I thought their defense would remain good. It was around the top 10 last season, and I thought Brian Flores would have them take the next step. He got Tua Tagovailoa some weapons. And even though Tua hasn't been playing, I don't see a huge difference between him and Jacoby Brissett. So the defense has been a letdown, and the Dolphins continue to do nothing on offense. So with all of that being said, I don't really have any faith in the Dolphins anymore. I think they're a bad football team. I think they definitely are kicking themselves over not taking Tua over Justin Herbert. So I'm out on the Dolphins. I don't see anything they do well. They don't run the ball well. They don't play defense well. They don't pass the ball well. Will Fuller was the biggest waste of money, and I have been preaching that since the preseason, or since he was signed. That was a dumb decision. I understand that you need to get Tua perimeter weapons, but I would not have drafted an injury-prone he is injury-prone, but also being a player who cannot stay on the field because he's doing dumb stuff off the field, like taking PEDs. I did not like that signing. I would have them much rather addressed it in the draft. They had 2 first-round picks. I really like the Jalen Phillips pick. That was a great pick, and I like the Jalen Waddle pick. But if you wanted to get another perimeter weapon to go along with Devontae Parker and Jalen Waddle, I would not have used Will Fuller. Would not have been my guy if I was a general manager of the Miami Dolphins. I would have probably looked at signing someone who either in the free agency, like Curtis Samuel would have been a better signing, even though he's not playing that well. But at least I know without injury, because Curtis Samuel doesn't have the craziest injury history in the NFL, but he is. It's funny that I'm saying that because he's just coming off injury, but he's not hurt like Will Fuller is. Like Will Fuller has never played 16 games in his entire career. He is. I think the most games. I'll look it up right now. I think the most games he's ever played in the NFL in a season is 13. But if you want to know where I get some of these stats from, check out Yahoo.com. Yahoo does a great job of breaking down stats by teams. But Will Fuller, at most, has played 14 games, right? Yep, 14 games. And since then, the second most he's played was 11. He played 11 in 2020 and 2019. He's played 2 in 2021. 2018 he played 7, and 2017 he played 10. So the dude literally is just never on the field. That's why I don't like players like that. Even though Will Fuller is a very talented receiver, in a make or break year for the Miami Dolphins, I did not like that signing. Anyway, that's enough about the Dolphins. Let's talk about the next team. Coming in at 25th, previously 26th, moving up a spot, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. They had a huge win over the Denver Broncos this past weekend, and Big Ben looked the best he has all season, maybe except for week 1 against the Bills. But this team, and this was the knock on the Steelers from last season of like why they crumbled down the stretches. They just were the most hurt team in football, and that's been the same story this season. But week 1, when they were whole, they were able to upset the Bills. And now that they're starting to get TJ Watt back, they got Cam Hayward back, they got Deontay Johnson back, Juju Smith is out for the season. I don't think that's too much of a loss, but Juju is out for the season. Chase Claypool's still there balling out, and Najee Harris is finally coming into his own. This Steelers team could climb up the ranks. I have more than enough faith in Mike Tomlin for them to do that. It's just a matter of can Big Ben sustain the play he showed last weekend? Because before that, he's looked like the worst quarterback in the NFL, and that's not an exaggeration. Coming in at ranked 24, previously ranked 20, I have the New York Giants. The New York Giants just had a huge loss to the Dallas Cowboys. And if you watched the game or just watched the coverage from this weekend, the entire Giants first-string offense got hurt. They were down to 4 offensive starters in this game. And, you know, if your quarterback goes down, you better have a good backup. Like, Geno Smith almost came in and upset the Rams. But, unfortunately, the Giants had Mike Glennon in their terrible offensive line, couldn't do anything. Saquon got out. Kenny Golladay got out. Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton didn't suit up before the game because they got hurt 2 weeks ago. Andrew Thomas, their starting left tackle, who looks really good this year, did not play. And the Cowboys just annihilated them. The only bright spot in this game was Kadarius Toney, if you're a Giants fan. He had 10 catches on 13 targets for 189 yards and punched some dude in the face. So that was sick. I'm not counting the Giants out because I think they're a team that is talented enough to win without Saquon Barkley and Kenny Golladay. I think if you give them Sterling Shepard, Kadarius Toney from what we saw last week, Daniel Jones comes back, and the most important player on this team is Andrew Thomas. Because if you have Andrew Thomas, the rest of this offensive line comes into suit. So I can't peg the Giants too much for their second string offense losing to the Dallas Cowboys, who are a very competitive team this year. I can't peg them too much for that. So that's all I kind of want to say about the Giants. I think they're a team that still is probably the second or third best in the NFC East. They're right there with the Philadelphia Eagles. I think between the Eagles and the Giants, there's a monstrous gap between the Cowboys and then the next best team, whoever that may be. But we'll see how they play against the Rams if they have Daniel Jones and their starters back. Kenny Golladay and Saquon won't be playing, but with Daniel Jones, and when Daniel Jones was playing, it was a tied ball game going into halftime. It was 10-10, and then Daniel Jones' head got put into a blender. But anyways, let's talk about the next team. Coming in at ranked 23, previously ranked 25, I have the Chicago Bears. So I don't think that Matt Nagy will ever keep this team competitive. It's really impressive that they are 3-2 because they just played the Raiders, who if you follow this channel, if you follow the podcast, I have never believed in the Raiders for a single week. The only impressive win, they've had 2 impressive wins against the Ravens, and I forget who they played week 2. But they had a few impressive wins, and like I said, John Gruden's not even the coach anymore, but when John Gruden was there, because John Gruden, if you missed it, just resigned, I think, yesterday. This is being recorded on Wednesday, October 13th. John Gruden resigned on October 12th. And I never believed in him. John Gruden, in his entire career, not just this tenure with the Raiders, in his entire career has a 39% win percentage. He's not a good head coach. He's never been a good head coach, and he's way too emotional. I always thought that the Raiders, they picked up steam going 3-0, but as soon as John Gruden, got into his own head and thought he was sweeter than he is, they would start to lose game, and that is exactly what they've done. John Gruden was there for this game against the Bears, so that's not an excuse. They did just fall. They are now on a 2-game losing streak. But that's too much about the Raiders. We're talking about the Bears. I think the Bears continue to be a low 20s, or I guess a high 20 ranked team. They don't do anything impressive. They are missing their best player, in my opinion, in David Montgomery. I think he's their best offensive player. We'll see what Justin Fields does throughout the season. I'm a huge Justin Fields fan. I think he's really going to come into his own. I think he has so much promise. I thought he was my QB2 in the class, so I'm excited to see him play. I think Matt Nagy's definitely going to hold him back. But coming in at ranked 22, previously ranked 21, I have the Tennessee Titans. I know they're 3-2. But this Titans team does so many things bad that they are not going to win the AFC South. They don't play well on off. They do not play well on defense. They don't pressure the quarterback on defense. And Ryan Tannehill is having one of the worst careers, one of the worst seasons in his career since his time with Miami and Adam Gase. Derrick Henry can only carry them so far. A.J. Brown has been irrelevant all season. Julio Jones is now going on to his second straight week of not playing a game. And the Titans have had a pretty easy schedule so far. I will say the hardest game they've played is the Colts. And the Colts team has only gotten better since then. So I'm keeping the Titans at 22. I don't think they're that good of a team. They definitely are the second best team in the AFC South when your competition is the Texans and the Jaguars, who are both ranked 30 and 31st. So I don't have any faith in the Titans. I think that if you follow the channel, I really said that people really need to pump the brakes on the Titans. They still have not fixed themselves defensively, and their offense is too Derrick Henry dependent. Yeah, they have great perimeter weapons of Julio Jones and A.J. Brown, but Ryan Tannehill is not playing well. And a lot of Ryan Tannehill critics are starting to turn out to be right that he's not that good of a quarterback. And his stats in play was inflated because of what Derrick Henry could do by himself. I think in week 3, Derrick Henry had 41 total touches, which is absolutely madness. He touched the ball more than Ryan Tannehill threw the ball, and he's a running back. So that's absolutely absurd. But coming in at rank 21, previously 23, I have the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles just had a huge win over the Carolina Panthers. It really was an impressive win by the Eagles. They still have a lot to improve, but this was a huge win by Eagles. Darius Slay, their big free agency signing in 2020, finally has stepped up. He finally showed up. He's playing, I don't know if he's playing season long as good as Marshawn Lattimore, but he had the second or first highest grade by a cornerback next to Marshawn Lattimore in week 5. So if they can if Darius Slay can consistently shut down players like DJ Moore, this Eagles team will start to make some noise. And I don't really have all the faith in the world in their offense just yet, but again, and I hate saying this over and over and over again, but if you follow the channel, I firmly believe that every team has an identity, and each season, it could change from season to season, but each team has an identity, and I could not figure out what the Eagles' identity was. And I think after week 2, I started to say this Eagles defense is really, really good. Not really good, but this defense, their identity is in their defense, and their defense has gotten better. They've had some injuries along the way, but they still, to shut down a powerful offense in the Carolina Panthers is very impressive. And though it was a low-scoring game, I think it was, 18-16 or something like that, to get a huge road win at Carolina, that was an impressive win to me. I still don't want to move them up too much because even though it was an impressive win, the Panthers have not had Christian McCaffrey, who is their best player, and they're missing J.C. Horn. And I don't think Stephon Gilmore suited up for that game. I think he starts this week. They just traded a 2023 6th-round pick for Stephon Gilmore. So though it was an impressive win for the Eagles, it was against a pretty badly injured Carolina Panthers. They're missing their best offensive player, and they're missing arguably their top 3 defensive player, who was their 8th overall selection from the 2021 draft. But coming in at ranked 20, previously ranked 13, I have the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders, I left them at 13 for the past 2 weeks. They jumped up to 13 in their Week 3 win, and then they moved down to 13, losing to the Chargers, because the Chargers, in my opinion, are one of the best teams in football. I have been very high on the Chargers all season long. I absolutely love the Chargers, so I didn't knock them too much for that. But then to go out and lose at home against the Chicago Bears, that is bad. And this was under John Gruden. So maybe if they get a new head coach who's not as emotional, maybe they move up. Because they are a very talented roster. They have great weapons on the outside with Hunter Renfrow, Henry Ruggs, who took a big step up this season, and you have Derek Carr, who was playing at an MVP level for the first 3 weeks, and Josh Jacobs, who's coming back off injury. There is talent on this roster, and they definitely could be a potential competitor in the AFC West, but coaching, people really, really underestimate how important coaching is. And folks, coaching is probably probably the second most important piece of a football team. I would say that quarterback and coaching go hand in hand. You could have a great quarterback and have a terrible coach, and the quarterback would suck. Perfect example, Ryan Tannehill. Or also, good example, Sam Darnold, who's been playing out of his mind this season. He's taken a few steps back with Christian McCaffrey not being on the field with him, but he still is playing well. He's starting to turn the ball over a little bit more, but he's still playing pretty decent. So with the Raiders, I think they could move back up, but luckily they started 3-0, so they have a little bit of wiggle room. So we'll see how they turn out. It's really this season in the NFL is still so much up for grabs, unless you're pretty much a 1-4 team. But there are so many teams that are 3-2, and there's one team that's 5-0, and there are about 4 teams that are 4-1, 4 or 5 teams that are 4-1. So being at 3-2 is a very good spot. So the Raiders could rebound. It depends on how their new head coach comes in and takes over. But let's talk about the 19th ranked team, previously ranked 19th. I have the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints, to me, continue to be a mystery. I think they've kind of gotten to the point where we have to stop putting the ball in Jameis Winston's hands and force it into Alvin Kamara's hands. Alvin Kamara had 170-something yards against the New York Giants. And he had another big week this past week against Washington. Again, Washington's football team is supposed to have a good defensive front. They're supposed to be able to stop the run. They have not been able to do that at all this season. Alvin Kamara just ran all over them. The Saints are 3-2. They're a very sneaky 3-2. I don't think anybody's really paying attention to the Saints. Their defense is amazing. Marshall Lattimore is probably the second or first best cornerback in football. I would definitely take him above Trayvon Diggs. Trayvon Diggs has been very impressive this season, but I think I got to give it to Marshall Lattimore for right now. I think Trayvon Diggs definitely could finish the season is like a top 3 cornerback. I'm not trying to take anything away from him. I think he's probably the best defensive player on the Cowboys, and then you got Micah Parsons at number 2. But Marshall Lattimore's up there, and the Saints defense has been impressive. The only reason I have the Saints pretty low on this list is because of the inconsistency. I have no idea what to expect from them. They went out and lost to the New York Giants, who played probably the best game. That was one of the only games the Giants have played with all of their players. So is that credit to the Giants, or is that a knock on the Saints? So I don't really know what to make of the Saints so far, but they have been able to win games, and I think they could move up. I think they could continue to sneakily be competitive, but we have to see more. I have to see more consistency, because the teams they've played have been good and bad, and they've lost to good and bad teams. Like, they dominated the Packers week 1, and then went out and lost to, I forget who they lost to week 2, but it was not a good football team. Anyway, let's go to number 18. Coming in at number 18, previously ranked 22, I have the Indianapolis Colts. I have been saying this all along. The Colts will win the AFC South. They are the best team in that division, and it's not even close. And keep in mind, every team the Colts play, the Titans will have to play eventually. And the Colts have been competitive. They were competitive against the Rams. They lost to the Ravens in overtime. The Colts have been very competitive all season long. They did lose to the Titans, but that was week 3. And the Colts have gotten better each week since then. So I think the Colts have a way better roster than the Titans. I think they've played way harder competition than the Titans have. I really do have faith that the Colts are going to turn it around. They have a way better roster than the Titans on offense, and more importantly, they are light years ahead on defense. So I think they're going to figure it out. Carson Wentz got pretty banged up along the way, but he's starting to play better. And like I've said, Carson Wentz's stats are definitely negatively inflated because of the competition they've played. And Carson Wentz, believe it or not, is playing better than Ryan Tannehill is, and Ryan Tannehill has not had a hard schedule so far. So I think the Colts are going to turn it around. I definitely think they're better than the Titans. The records are definitely don't show that, but do not, if you are a Colts fan, do not lose faith in your team, because you guys are going to win the AFC South. Coming in at rank 17, previously ranked 15, I have the New England Patriots. This team continues to do things good and do things really bad. Their biggest weakness is their inability to throw the ball down the field. They just let Stephon Gilmore. They just traded Stephon Gilmore away, but their defense, he hasn't played all season, and their defense has been fine without him. They have a great run-stopping defense up front with Deontay Howard coming in, Matthew Judon, who's been a great signing, their second-round pick, and Christian Barmore. And Mac Jones just played the most impressive game. He has had 2 back-to-back very impressive games. He had a great game against Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which they may have won if it wasn't a monsoon, and Nick Folk hits that kick in the monsoon. Like, if that's sunshine or normal weather, they might have beat the Bucs. And he just led a great come-from-behind victory over the Texans. It was the Texans, but like we gave credit to Joe Burrow and the Bengals last week against the Jaguars, to overcome 14 points is impressive no matter who it's against, because you still, like, you're really, really against the clock, and the other team knows that. So they're going to do as much as they can to make your window to come back that much smaller by getting first downs, running the ball, keeping the clock moving. So it was impressive. It was a very impressive win for me, for Mac Jones and the Patriots. I'm still moving them down, though, because though they are getting better, they need to keep going. They really need to go into this draft and nail their first-round pick. If it's up to me, they have a great offensive line. They have a great defense. I'm drafting the best wide receiver you possibly can for Mac Jones to develop with, because Jacoby Myers, Nelson Aguilar just aren't it. Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith continue to struggle. They just need to get this kid one legit weapon, and I think that the Patriots will be way better off. And I think they're going to continue to be. They will definitely come in second in the AFC East. It's just a matter of putting it together, because their offense has looked better each week. I just need them to throw the ball down the field more. They need to be more aggressive vertically and stop playing so conservative. I think Mac Jones has averaged the lowest intended air yards or the lowest completed air yards, maybe both, all season long. He's at least bottom 5. So if they could put that together and they could start to throw the ball down the field, I think that this Patriots team will start winning games against very competitive teams. Coming in at rank 16, previously ranked 12, I have the Denver Broncos. So I thought that the Broncos were actually a legit 3-0 team. It's starting to look like they're not. Unfortunately, they did just lose to the Steelers. But I did say for the Broncos, we will know if they're legit if they go 500 over the next 4 weeks. And this was week 3. I said this during week 3. Because they played the Ravens, the Broncos, and then I think they played the Raiders, and they played another competitive team. If they could win these next 2 games, they are a legit football team. They will have proven themselves as legit contenders, because that will keep, if they could win the next 2, that keeps them that they keep pace to stay in second in the AFC East or the AFC West. Excuse me. They'll be a game ahead of the Chiefs, and I don't know what's going to happen to the Raiders, but they'll still be behind the Los Angeles Chargers. So I want to see what the Broncos do these next 2 weeks because that'll really tell us and me if they're a legit team. They did play a week without Teddy Bridgewater as well. But coming in at rank 15, previously ranked 14, I have the Carolina Panthers. I moved them down one spot. I probably could have moved them lower, but I moved them down because they did lose to the Philadelphia Eagles, who don't have the best offense. And Sam Darnold is regressing week by week. I was a huge Sam Darnold believer coming into the season. I thought he was the answer. I still do think he is the answer. But game plans change when your when your players get hurt. And Christian McCaffrey is the most important player on this offense. We are seeing the emergence of Tommy Tremble, DJ Moore starting to slow down. It's really going to depend on how this Panthers team rebounds moving forward. The Eagles are a team, like most of the teams on the right-hand side of the screen, in the rightmost column. Those are teams that teams look at and go, okay, this is a win. This game is a win. Like on their calendar, this is a win. The Eagles are a team that teams look at and go, okay, this is a win. So for them to go in and lose that game, that is really bad for the Panthers. I think that, McCaffrey is going to be back this week. J.C. Horn will be back at the end of the year, but they got to keep momentum. They have to gain. They're coming off of 2 straight losses. They have to regain ground. And they did lose to the Cowboys for their first loss. So I'm not going to, without McCaffrey and without J.C. Horn, so I can't knock them too much for those losses. But coming in at rank 14, previously ranked, where are they on my list? 16. I had the 49ers. The 49ers did just lose this past week. They lost to the Cardinals, who are we'll get to them. But they did lose to the Cardinals, and they lost in competitive fashion, which is the most important part of that game to me. They lost in competitive fashion. And Trey Lance looked a lot better than I thought. My prediction for him was a sub 60% completion percentage with 2 turnovers. He only had 1. He didn't look as, I think for me, personally, he did everything I expected. He flashed for sure. The most important part about this is he's flashed against the Arizona Cardinals. I'm trying not to give away where they're ranked, but he flashed against a really, really, really good team. So I think that this is going to come down to if they're going to make the wild card or not. When is Jimmy Garoppolo going to be healthy, and what does that look like when he plays? Or do you ride with Trey Lance, and does he develop at a very, very rapid pace? And can he win you football games? Because I think he has all the talent in the world to do so. He could do it with his legs. He could do it with his arm. I think he just needs the reps. And for him to go in his first start against the Cardinals, it's only going to get easier. Every team they play against, it's only going to get easier for him. So I'm keeping an eye on the Niners because they're they're like a dark horse wild card team in my opinion. With how close these divisions are, with how many 3-2 teams there are, and for them to be 2-3, almost beating the Seattle Seahawks from behind, and almost beating the Packers from behind, or almost beating the Packers, losing on a last-second field goal. This is a really interesting team to watch because I think they really can squeak into the wild card with how the divisions are shaping up. But coming in at rank 13, previously ranked 10, Seattle Seahawks. I have to drop them down, one, because they lost to the Rams, which is not so much of the reason why I dropped them down. I dropped them down most importantly because their defense is trash. Their defense is so bad. It is ranked 30th in the entire NFL right now. Jamal Adams is horrible. He's a glorified linebacker that could blitz from the safety position. I don't know really even know what to say about him anymore. That trade for the Jets is looking amazing at this point. But the real reason I'm dropping them down, aside from their defense, is because Russell Wilson is out for 6 to 8 weeks. So we have no idea what this team's going to look like with Geno Smith. From what we saw from Geno Smith against the Rams, he looked great, and he shouldn't have had a turnover. Tyler Lockett fell down on his route while Geno Smith was throwing the ball. So obviously, it's going to get picked off. But Tyler Lockett was wide open. He fell, and the defender just kept running and caught the ball. So we'll see what the Seahawks look like. But most important reason for them to be dropping down is because their defense continues to be trash. And it almost seemingly continues to get worse. But coming in at rank 12, previously rank 18, this is a huge jump for them, the Minnesota Vikings. So I have if you followed along with my power rankings, I have always said that the Vikings are the best 1-3 team in the NFL. They are a very good football team. They just need to piece together wins. They lost to the Cardinals, who are 5-0 on a last-second field goal. They lost a game that they were literally about to win on a Dalvin Cook fumble in the last seconds of the game, or last minutes of the game, and the Bengals were able to go down and tie it up. This is a team that is very competitive and has, besides the Lions, probably the worst luck all year long. They're very competitive, and I think that they were one of my picks to make the wild card going in from preseason. And I think that had they kept pace with the Packers, they could be their offense is top 10 and their defense gets better every week. So they're a team that can make it into the wild card. They could string together. They could start stacking wins. I just don't believe in Kirk Cousins at all when it comes to primetime games or playoff games. So we'll see how they pan out. But I think the team as itself is very solid and deserves a lot more credit than they've given or earned. They've earned a 2-3 record, but they deserve a lot more credit. Or I think they deserve the 2-3 record, but they're a team that deserves a lot more credit at the same time. They are a very good football team, but let's talk about the next team. Coming in at rank 11, previously ranked 17th, I have the Cincinnati Bengals, and I know this could be a shock to a lot of you guys, but the Bengals have been very competitive against very good teams. And let's kind of look at who they've played and how they've played them. The Vikings, who were competitive with the Cardinals and lost on a field goal that they should have made, so they should have won that game, they beat them in overtime. It was a pretty intense overtime, too. And they just went toe-to-toe with the Packers and should have beat them. Also, Mason Crosby missed, I think, 3 kicks in that game. And, I think, what's his name? Ryan McPherson or something like that. The Bengals kicker also missed kicks. But the Bengals were competitive in that game. Joe Burrow, that was a very impressive game for him. And more importantly, that was an insane game from Jamar Chase. We really saw the potential of what this Joe Burrow-Jamar Chase combination could be. I like the Bengals. I think their defense is way better than advertised. And their offensive line in pass blocking is way better than it was last year. Plus, they have a good ground game. They don't have the best run blocking unit, but they've been efficient on the ground. Joe Mixon has been efficient not as efficient, but he's been good on the ground. And I think this Bengal team is getting better each week. Like, a lot of these teams do get better each week, which is why they move up the power rankings, because they're able to analyze what they did wrong, what didn't work in the games prior, and move up and adjust. Adjustments are the biggest thing to get better in sports. You have to be able to adjust. If you're a player, if you're a coach, if you're a unit, you need to be able to identify problems and adjust to mitigate those problems. The Bengals do that every week. They just traded they traded Billy Price for Giants defensive tackle BJ Hill, and he is one of the best defensive linemen that the Bengals have, and they got him for a penny. He's had 3 sacks through 4 weeks. Or through 5 weeks. I think he might have 4 sacks through 5 weeks, but he's been amazing. PFF has graded him out as one of the best defensive tackles in football. Not one of the best, but he is towards the top, top 15, top 20. He's been an amazing signing that they got for a potato. But let's look at number 10. Number 10, I have the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns continue to lose football games. They lost to the Chiefs with a 16-point lead. So happens when you have to create a team to make up for your quarterback's weaknesses. And they just lost against the Chargers. And I don't understand. Here's what I'll say about this. Because you could really argue that the Browns played the best game they could have. And I'd agree with that. They didn't get a hard... The refs really... Baker Mayfield has been complaining about a horrible missed PI call, which he's not wrong about. That was terrible. But at the same time... How do you lose a game where you have your running back rushes for 160 yards and you only threw 2 touchdowns? And someone said this on, I think it was Colin Cowherd. Colin Cowherd said this, and he's 100% right about it. Your coach will tell you what he believes in his quarterback by what he does in the fourth quarter and what plays he calls. Baker Mayfield, on his fourth quarter drive, on his his game-winning drive, after Justin Herbert just went down and scored, had 21 passing yards. They ran the ball on 3rd and 10. Kevin Stefanski does not believe in Baker Mayfield, and he cannot make it more obvious. I have been saying this all along. I am not a Baker Mayfield fan. I think he's probably PFF has him graded. PFF did first team underrated before the season, and Baker Mayfield was a quarterback. Baker Mayfield is the complete opposite of underrated. He's in all these commercials. He won. He was in the Heisman conversation. He has done all this crap, and he's a 500 quarterback on the best roster in football. He is every week we see the tangible limitations of Baker Mayfield, and now it is closing into his immediate social media atmosphere in Cleveland, Ohio. That's why his wife is now going out on Twitter and going out on the radio saying everybody needs to back off Baker Mayfield. Look what he's done to this franchise. No, look at what Kevin Stefanski has done to this franchise. He is the reason they have turned around, not Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was terrible under Freddie Kitchens. He was terrible before Kevin Stefanski got there. And what did Kevin Stefanski do when he got there? He turned this offense into a play-action, dink-and-dump offense being run first. That's why they have the Cleveland Browns single-handedly reimagined the running back position for the entirety of the NFL. You have Nick Chubb, who is your bruiser back, and Kareem Hunt, who is your pass-catching back, because they need to preserve the longevity of both of them. Nick Chubb has terrible knees. He had terrible knees when he was running at Georgia. They got Kareem Hunt because they know Nick Chubb is really, really, really good and probably our best offensive player. We need to keep him healthy, so let's get him someone who can complement him in Kareem Hunt. None of this is built around or around Baker Mayfield, because no matter what you put around Baker Mayfield, he doesn't make it work. That's why the Browns have moved down these power rankings every single week, because Baker Mayfield just continues to limit this game every week. And what you could be saying, Mike, how are you saying that? He played a near flawless game. He didn't turn the ball over once. Yeah, but Baker Mayfield was the number 1 overall pick. Let's look at what the number 6 overall pick did on the other side of the football. Threw for 4 touchdowns and ran for 1. Baker Mayfield literally had 2 touchdowns. 2 touchdowns in a game that had over 87 points in it. That's craziness. Come on. You cannot look me in the face and say Baker Mayfield adds anything to this team, because he literally does not. He does not add anything. Coming in at number 9, previously ranked 11, I have the Green Bay Packers. I think the Green Bay Packers, I have been pretty low on them. I think they're a huge fraud of a team. I think they're going to get bounced in the first round of the playoffs. But Aaron Rodgers continues to be one of the best quarterback talents of our generation, one of the best quarterback talents of all time. He continues to put the team on his back. He has, I think he has this season already 2 either fourth quarter or overtime wins, which he willed the team into that game. He beat the 49ers with 37 seconds left. Come on. Packers may not have faced the best competition, which is a testament to why I think they're frauds, but Aaron Rodgers will always keep this team top 10. He is something to behold. We really, as football fans, need to appreciate Aaron Rodgers while we have him, because we probably don't have too many seasons yet left of Aaron Rodgers. Coming in at number 8, previously ranked 7, I have the Chiefs. So I can't move the Chiefs out of the top 10. I don't think I'll ever move them out of the top 10 unless they just continue to lose games. But the reason why I can't is because the Chiefs are so talented and they have such a good coach that they could really turn it around any week offensively. Not that their offense has been bad, but their red zone offense has been horrible. But their defense is so bad. It is literally 32nd in the NFL, I think. It's definitely bottom 30, and I know that the Seahawks are number 30, so they have to be 31, 32. They are so bad on defense that it doesn't matter. One of my biggest locks, if you were a sports bettor, one of my biggest locks for last week was the Bills, because the Bills are the number 1 defense in football, and they were going up against an equally talented offense. So if you take an equally talented offense and put it against the 32nd ranked defense, what do you expect that game to look like? And if you took the best offense in football and put it against the best defense in football, what do you expect that to look like? I literally posted, it was in the podcast from last Thursday, that the Bills were going to win that game by 2 touchdowns, and they did. The Chiefs need to adjust on defense, and they need to stop being, they're super egotistical. Andy Reid needs to call boring plays. You need to run the ball when you're in the red zone. You need to run the ball anywhere on the field. You need to have Patrick Mahomes throwing from the pocket. You went out and rebuilt your offensive line for a reason. You need to know to play boring. That's the reason why you aren't efficient in the red zone, and Patrick Mahomes is turning the ball over at the highest rate he has in his entire career. You need to play boring, and you need to make adjustments on defense. I think, to their defense is starting the most rookies in the entire NFL. So they will get better as the season progresses. But, they need to go. The trade deadline's coming up. They need to go out and make trades. They need to look to acquire pieces. I don't know why they didn't trade for Stephon Gilmore. I think a lot of teams just waited for him to fall into waivers, and they were just going to claim him. But the Panthers literally offered probably the most bare minimum they could have, a 6th-round pick for not next year, for 2023. So that leads me to believe nobody offered anything for him. If you're the Chiefs or the Packers, why would you not do that? That is literally getting a former Pro Bowl corner for a penny. You're not getting anything. You're not losing anything. You really think that 6th-round pick is good? It could, but do you really think it's going to pan out? That was careless by the Chiefs. But coming in at rank 7, previously ranked 9, I have the Dallas Cowboys. Though they beat the New York Giants' second-string offense handily, they still are just very good. And why I think they're very good is they have probably the 2 best coordinators in football, in my opinion. Dan Quinn, who took this defense that was ranked 29th last year or 32nd last year. I think it was 32nd last year, and turned it into an average to above average defense. They've hit home runs in every draft. They got Trayvon Diggs last year, or not 2021, 2020, and they got Micah Parsons, who are defensive studs. And Kellen Moore is probably the best offensive coordinator in all of football. He is amazing. The Cowboys are so deadly on offense because it doesn't matter what you show them defensively. They have an answer for it. And Dak is to the point in his career where why he's elevating his game is, one, he's completing all of his passes, 75% of his passes. But he is also to the point where he is audibling at the line of scrimmage very effectively. He's audibling very, very, very effectively. If you want to give them the flats, if you want to give them the shallow passes, they'll take it. If you don't want to stack the box, they'll run it. If you want to give them a deep pass, they'll take it. They do everything well. They're very good. They haven't had the hardest schedule just yet, but they almost beat the Buccaneers, who are a very good football team. They play the Rams pretty soon, and they play the Chiefs, and they play a few other good teams, but tests are coming for the Cowboys, and I really do think this is the first year, if you know Cowboys fans, and they're always like, oh man, this is our year. This year, legitimately could be their year. However, they do always do this every single year and play very well during the regular season and then get bounced in the first round of the playoffs. So the real test for the Cowboys is they're going to make the playoffs because of how sorry this NFC East division is, but they need to step up in the playoffs. That's my opinion on the Cowboys. They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to continue to dominate bad teams like they always do. But I want to see them play someone. I want to see them play some competition. Their most impressive win this year was against the Chargers. And I think that if they play that Chargers team now, they lose. But I think, tests are coming for the Cowboys. But they are a very, very talented football team. Coming in at rank 6, previously ranked 3, I had the Rams. I think that the Rams are starting to be figured out, which is why Robert Woods had the best game of his season so far, because the Seahawks were wise enough to limit Cooper Kupp, and it didn't really matter because now the Rams can attack anywhere. But the thing with the Rams is they were losing that game. It was a close game until Russell Wilson got hurt, tore his finger muscle or whatever. So I'm kind of stuck on the Rams. I think the Rams are still one of the top teams in the NFC. I would take them to beat anybody else besides maybe I don't know. I don't know what I think. The Rams are still very good, but I don't know. They are one of the best teams in the NFC. Do not hear what I'm not saying, but I don't know where they rank as one of the best teams in the NFC because there are very dominant teams in the NFC at this point. But let's go to number 5. I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who I still have above the Rams, even though they lost, because the Bucs, their Bucs defense is getting better each week, but it's also very, very, very injured. So I can't. If you gave me the Bucs Rams week 1, I don't know. I think the Buccaneers would win that game, but I think that the Buccaneers offensively have it beyond figured out, and defensively they're only going to get better week to week, and they're going to get players back. So I think the Bucs are still a better team than the Rams, but both are 4-1. We'll see how the Buccaneers play the Eagles this week. So we'll see how they stack up. The Eagles have been able to put up points on bad defenses. That's why they didn't put up too many points on the Panthers, which is the best defense they've played so far. No, that was the best defense that they've won a game against so far. They put up points against the Chiefs, who have a terrible defense. They put up points against the Atlanta Falcons, who have terrible defense. But they didn't put up too many points against the Niners, the Panthers, and I forget the other team they played, but. We will see how good this Buccaneers defense is this week against the Eagles. I've kind of been using the Eagles as a measuring stick for how good defenses are, and I've been right about it so far. So we'll see. We'll get an accurate eye test of the Bucs defense when we see them play the Eagles this week. Coming in at rank 4, previously ranked 6, I have the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers, to me, they have probably a top 3 quarterback in the NFL right now. I know that sounds crazy, but people really came at me when I said Justin Herbert's already elite. But like if you look at it, because the argument was, oh well, let's see more first before we say he's elite. Like, okay, what did he do last season? He was the best rookie quarterback of all time behind a 32nd ranked offensive line. That is probably, you can't ask for more. How could you ask for more than that? He put up insane numbers behind with literally no protection or run game because Austin Eckler missed a bunch of games last season. And you had a coach who just didn't care. Reports about Anthony Lynn where he just didn't really care about the team last year. So, I mean, I don't know what else you want from Justin Herbert. He's out-dueling everybody. They lost to the Cowboys in this week 2 with a I think that if they play week 6, I think it's a different outcome. But the Chargers, to me, are one of the best teams at football, and it's like not even close. I just think that they do everything well. They went and like the Browns' defense going into that game was a very good defense. I think it was ranked within the top 7. I think they were ranked 7th. But they just dropped 47 on them. So I mean, what more can you ask from this kid? He's playing against good defenses. He just scored 5 touchdowns against, throwing 4, running 1 against one of the best defenses in football, and they just keep getting better. And Justin Herbert, the team gets better every week, but Justin Herbert gets exceptionally better every week. It's like night and day, and he's already playing at such a high level. Coming in at rank 3, previously ranked 5, I have the Baltimore Ravens. There is no argument I will listen to that Lamar Jackson is not an elite quarterback, is not a top 5 quarterback. You can't. What? Oh, he doesn't throw the ball well? He's not an accurate passer? Okay, he just completed 86% of his passes. Give me one other quarterback in the NFL that's done that this season. He's completed 86% of his passes. Oh, he can't win from behind. He just came over a 19-point deficit against the Colts, who are a good football team and have a great defense, and shut them down all night if you didn't watch the game. That was all Lamar Jackson. That was literally all Lamar Jackson. You cannot convince me that Lamar Jackson isn't a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. He has no weakness. And he's on one of the most injured rosters in all of football. Like, I get it. J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards are running backs, but with how the Ravens are structured as an offense, that's like the Chiefs missing Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. And, Lamar Jackson has nobody to throw to. Well, Marquise Brown has sure stepped up. And who did they draft in the first round? Oh, Rashad Bateman, who hasn't played a snap yet. And he's still completing 86% of his passes and had the most passing yards in Ravens franchise history this past weekend against the Colts. Give me a break. And it was a primetime game. If the Ravens were healthy, they are probably the best team in football, and it's not even close. Give me a break with the Lamar Jackson hate, because if you don't like Lamar Jackson or will argue Lamar Jackson is not a good quarterback, you are a hater. There's no other way to put it. You just don't like the guy. And why I kind of have a little bit of a bias towards Lamar Jackson is because I said that in that draft when Lamar Jackson won the Heisman in 2018 that he was the most overlooked quarterback in that entire quarterback class. And I got laughed at by almost everybody. So everybody can suck it. Lamar Jackson is elite. He's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. The only quarterbacks I would even think about putting above him right now, Josh Allen, I guess Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert's on par. Tom Brady's playing out of his mind. But that's the thing is, like, if I'm putting them above him, it's not by much. And for some of them, I don't even feel comfortable putting them above him. Like, Mahomes right now, newsflash, Lamar Jackson out-dueled Patrick Mahomes in 2021. I mean, you can't argue with me that Lamar Jackson in this Ravens team is not an elite team, is not the best team in the AFC North, and is not the second best team in the AFC, period. You cannot argue that with me. Because you're not right. You're not right about it. I'm sorry. Their defense is crazy. Odafe Away was a home run draft pick that they got from the Chiefs for trading them Ronnie Stanley. Their offensive line is still good without Ronnie Stanley. And we haven't even seen their first round pick yet in Rashad Bateman. Who the hell knows what he looks like? And all the reports were this kid is a freak of nature. So I've said this before. I said it in the Fantasy Podcast episode. The ranking for the top 3 rookie wide receivers will be Jamar Chase, number 1, and then 2 and 3 will be Rashad Bateman and Kadarius Toney, 2 and 3. I don't know who will finish where, but those are the 3 best rookie wide receivers. We've seen one for 5 games. We've seen Toney for really 2 games because the Giants just, I guess, forgot he was on their roster, and we're about to see Rashad Bateman in his first game this weekend. This Ravens team is really, really good, and Lamar Jackson is really, really good, and if you don't adhere to that, you're a hater, or you just don't watch football. I'm sorry. Or you're probably a Browns fan. But coming in at number 2, previously number 2, I have the Arizona Cardinals. Again, oh no, that should be 5-0, not 4-1. So that's a typo by me. But the Cardinals are they are so competitive. They are so talented. On offense, it's not even close. Like, they're the most talented offense in the football, probably neck and neck with the Dallas Cowboys. They don't have as good of a running game, but Kyler Murray makes up for that. And the only reason I have them actually pegged to finish second in the NFC West is solely because of Cliff Kingsbury. He almost lost to the Vikings, and he was a 1-score game against the 49ers with a rookie quarterback who hasn't played yet. That game should not have been close, in my opinion. I'm sorry. It should not have been close. Cliff Kingsbury will always cap this team. They really need to get a head coach, and I hope that they don't use this season as an excuse to keep him, because this Cardinals team should be way more competitive, way more dominant than it is, honestly. They have been in a lot of close games, and they are so much more talented than everybody they've played. They should not be in close games. And then coming in at number 1, previously ranked number 1, the Buffalo Bills. They're a team that should be 5-0. They are the best defensive football. Josh Allen is completely going nuts again. he had a 2-week stretch where everybody was like, "Uh-oh, is this sophomore Josh Allen?" No, he just needed to play a few games, I guess. No, the Bills' offense is just as good as the Chiefs, and their defense is better than everybody else on this list. And they are the number 1 team in football. I've had them there for 2 weeks, and now everybody's kind of catching up. Like, oh, the Bills are actually the best team in football. Yeah, it's like not that hard if you just look at numbers and watch them play. Like, it's pretty right there in front of you. It's not even close. Because what were the Bills' 2 weaknesses that they completely fixed overnight? Couldn't run the ball. Now they have the most efficient red zone running back in the NFL in Zach Moss, and they couldn't get to the pass rush. They couldn't get to the quarterback, and they've developed a top 5 pass rush in literally a day. So the Bills are the best team in football. It's not even close. Anyway, that's going to do it for my power rankings for this week. Thank you for watching. This was a super long one. But if you liked what you heard, please like, comment, subscribe. I'll try not to keep making them this long anymore. But I get a little bit passionate when I'm talking about it. Please check out the channel. Check out our other videos. And like, comment, subscribe. It helps the channel out a lot. But thank you for watching. And we'll catch you in the next one. Peace!